The massive doors of the Grand Assembly Hall opened slowly. Ambassador Gregory Martinez walked through them, his blue diplomatic uniform crisp and formal. The hall stretched before him like a cathedral made of crystal and light. He had been here before, but the sight still took his breath away. The walls glowed with a soft blue light, and the ceiling seemed to reach up forever into darkness. Gregory was not young anymore. His hair had turned gray at the temples, and lines marked his face from years of difficult conversations. He had served in the military once, fighting in the small wars between human colonies before Earth united them all. Now he fought with words instead of weapons, but today, looking at the 12 alien beings seated on their high thrones, he wished words would be enough. Behind him walked Dr. Kevin Price, carrying a data tablet filled with charts and evidence. Kevin was younger, maybe 35, with the eager energy of someone who still believed reason could solve any problem. He studied aliens for a living, learning their languages and customs. Gregory envied that optimism. He had stopped believing the galaxy was fair a long time ago. The two humans walked across the polished floor toward the center of the hall. Their footsteps echoed in the silence. Above them, the council members watched without expression. High Chancellor Varric sat in the middle throne, his insect body towering 3 meters tall. His compound eyes reflected the light in strange patterns. Gregory had learned not to try reading emotion in those eyes. Gregory reached the speaking platform and stopped. He placed his hand on the scanner, and his credentials appeared in the air around him, human Earth ambassador. The words hung there like labels on a specimen in a laboratory. High Chancellor Varric made a clicking sound that the translator converted to speech. His voice came through cold and mechanical. Ambassador Martinez, you requested this session. Speak your petition. Gregory took a breath. Honored council members, I come before you on behalf of humanity with a matter of territorial rights. 3 months ago, our survey ships discovered a star cluster on the edge of explored space. 7 star systems rich in resources uninhabited. We filed proper claims according to galactic law. We sent colony ships. We began building settlements. He gestured, and Kevin activated the display. Images filled the air showing planets with blue skies and green valleys. These worlds can support human life without terraforming. For a species like ours, still growing, still learning, these worlds represent hope for billions of people. A council member on the left, a floating blob of liquid contained in a force field, spoke in bubbling tones. Get to the point, human. Gregory felt his jaw tighten but kept his voice level. 2 weeks ago, the council issued a decree claiming this entire sector as exclusive council territory. You ordered all human ships to leave, but honored council, these worlds were empty. Your species have never settled there. You have made no use of them in 10,000 years. Under galactic law, our discovery claim should be valid. High Chancellor Varric leaned forward slightly. Galactic law is what the council says it is. We have decided that sector falls under our jurisdiction. Your species is too new, too unstable to be trusted with such valuable resources. Kevin stepped forward, forgetting protocol in his eagerness. But that's not fair. We followed every rule. We filed the proper documents. We waited the required time periods. If you can just claim anything you want after someone else finds it, what's the point of having laws? Several council members made sounds that might have been laughter. Gregory put a hand on Kevin's shoulder, pulling him back. The young scientist looked shocked at the response. Varric's translator carried something close to amusement. The point of laws, young human, is to maintain order. The council has maintained peace in this galaxy for 10,000 years. We do this through strength and clear hierarchy. Your species numbers only 12 billion across 3 dozen worlds. The council represents species with populations in the trillions. Do you understand the mathematics of your situation? Gregory spoke carefully. I understand the council is powerful. I also understand that humanity is reasonable. We propose a compromise. Allow us to keep the 4 planets we have already begun settling. The council may claim the remaining systems in the sector. Both our people's benefit and unnecessary conflict is avoided. Varric did not even pause to consider. No, the council does not compromise with species barely out of their home system. You will withdraw all human presence from the sector within 30 standard days. Any human ships remaining after that time will be destroyed. Any human settlements will be removed. This is not a negotiation, Ambassador. This is notification of council decision. Gregory felt something cold settle in his chest. He had expected this, but hearing it stated so bluntly still shocked him. And if we refuse? The chamber fell completely silent. Even the ambient hum of the station system seemed to fade. Varric stood up from his throne, his full height towering over the humans far below. Then the Council will demonstrate why younger species do not refuse our decisions. We will destroy every human ship capable of faster than light travel. We will blockade your colonies until they surrender. We will reduce your species to your home system, where you can think about your arrogance for a few centuries before we allow you back into civilized space. Varric gestured to the walls around them. Gregory had noticed the decorations before but never asked about them. Now he looked closer. They were fragments of ships, weapons, and technology he did not recognize. Trophies. Do you see these, Ambassador? Each represents a species that challenged Council authority. The Krell thought their battleships were invincible. The Sorinth believed their technology superior. The Velkar thought sheer numbers would protect them. All of them are gone now. Dead species, extinct civilizations, cautionary tales we tell our children. Kevin spoke quietly, his voice shaking. You committed genocide 15 times. A different council member, a reptilian creature with golden scales, answered. We maintained order. The galaxy is peaceful because species know the cost of disrupting that peace. Your humanity is not special. You are primitive creatures who barely understand the technology you use. You should be grateful we are offering you a chance to submit, rather than simply eliminating you. Gregory looked at each council member in turn. He saw no sympathy, no doubt, no recognition that they might be wrong. They believed completely in their right to do whatever they wanted. Power was the only thing they understood. He pulled himself straight and spoke in a formal tone. I will carry your decision back to Earth. My government will consider your ultimatum and respond appropriately. Varric settled back onto his throne. See that you do. 30 days, Ambassador. Not 1 hour longer, dismissed. Gregory turned and walked back across the hall, Kevin following. The younger man looked crushed, all his faith in galactic civilization shattered in one session. They reached the doors, and Gregory paused to look back one more time at the council members on their thrones, so confident in their power. Outside the hall, Commander Lisa Harper waited by their shuttle. She was a career military officer, her uniform decorated with ribbons from a dozen successful operations. Her face was hard, her eyes constantly scanning for threats. How did it go? She asked, though she must have read the answer on Gregory's face. About as expected. They rejected everything. 30 days to evacuate or face destruction. Gregory climbed into the shuttle, suddenly feeling very tired. Lisa sealed the hatch and took the pilot's seat. Then I guess we're going to war. Kevin looked up from his tablet. War? Are you insane? Did you hear them? They've wiped out 15 species. They have trillions of citizens and millions of ships. We can't fight that. Lisa activated the shuttle's engines. No, we probably can't. But we can't let them push us around either. Otherwise, where does it stop? They take these colonies, then they take the next ones. Then they decide Earth itself is too valuable to leave in human hands. At some point, you have to stand up to bullies even if they're bigger than you. The shuttle lifted off from the council station and headed toward their ship waiting at a distance. Gregory stared out the window at the massive structure, thinking about Varric's words. The council believed humanity was just another primitive species that would bow to their threats. They reached their ship, a diplomatic vessel called the Pathfinder. It was small, lightly armed, designed for peaceful missions. Gregory went straight to his quarters and locked the door. He sat at his desk and opened a secure communication channel to Earth. His hands shook slightly as he typed his report. He kept his language formal and precise, laying out exactly what happened in the council session. He included the ultimatum, the threats, the dismissive attitude, and the trophies from extinct species. At the end of his report, he added his recommendation. The council has made their position clear. They see humanity as insignificant and beneath their consideration. They believe threats of violence will force our compliance. They are wrong. I recommend we reject the ultimatum completely. I recommend we prepare for war. And I recommend we show these ancient powers that humanity is not like the species they destroyed. We learn, we adapt, and we fight for what is ours. He read the message 3 times before sending it. Once it was gone. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, inside a complex that had survived 3 world wars. General Patricia Cole studied the holographic display floating above her desk. Red markers showed Council military positions. Blue markers showed human forces. The difference in numbers made her stomach hurt. Patricia had spent 40 years in military service. She had fought pirates in the asteroid belt, put down rebellions on frontier colonies, and planned defenses against threats that never came. Now the threat was here, and it was bigger than anything she had imagined. A chime announced a visitor. Admiral Christopher Morgan entered, still wearing his dress uniform from the emergency session with Earth's government. He looked tired. They all looked tired these days. The politicians finished arguing, Christopher said, dropping into a chair. They voted unanimously to reject the Council's ultimatum. So now it's our problem. Patricia nodded. I need to show you something. Computer, display tactical analysis. The hologram changed, showing battle simulations. Every single one ended the same way, with human forces destroyed within days. Christopher watched in silence as scenario after scenario played out. That bad? He finally asked. Worse. The Council has ships that can destroy planets. Their shields have never been broken by any weapon we know about. They have 1,000 ships for every one of ours. If we fight them directly using their rules and their kind of warfare, we lose. Probably within 2 weeks. Christopher leaned forward. So we don't fight their way. We fight ours. Explain. The Admiral stood and gestured at the display. The Council has been the dominant power for 10,000 years. They're used to enemies who follow the same tactical doctrine they do. Big fleets, formal battles, honor codes. But humans? We're sneaky. We're adaptable. We don't care about fighting fair, we care about winning. Patricia felt a spark of hope. Go on. Our ships are smaller, but they're faster and more maneuverable. Our crews can handle higher acceleration than most alien species. We can operate in conditions that would kill them, and most importantly, we know how to fight guerrilla warfare. Hit and run. Strike where they're weak. Avoid their strength. That might buy us time, but it won't win the war. Eventually they'll adapt, and we still can't break through their defenses. Christopher smiled for the first time in days. Which brings me to why I stopped by. I got a call from Dr. Helen Ross. She says she has something to show us, something that might change the equation. 2 hours later, they stood in a secure laboratory on Mars. Dr. Helen Ross greeted them at the door, her white coat covered in coffee stains. She looked like she had not slept in a week. Behind her, technicians worked on equipment that hummed with barely contained power. Thank you for coming, Helen said, leading them to a viewing window. I know you're busy preparing for war, but you need to see this before you finalize your plans. Through the window, they could see a testing chamber the size of a football field. In the center sat a target, a chunk of the same material used in Council ship hulls, protected by a smaller version of their shields. For years, I've been working on theoretical weapons that I was told were too dangerous to actually build, Helen explained. After Ambassador Martinez's report, I got authorization to make them real. What you're about to see is Project Starbreak. She pressed a button. A weapon that looked like a cannon fired. The projectile hit the shield and simply passed through it like the shield was not even there. The target exploded into fragments. Patricia stared. What was that? A quantum disruptor. It phases the projectile out of normal space at the quantum level. To the shield, the projectile doesn't exist. By the time it comes back into normal space, it's already past the shield. Helen was grinning now. But that's just weapon 1, a different weapon activated. This time there was no visible projectile. The target simply crumpled inward, crushed by invisible force. The shield flickered but did nothing to stop it. Graviton lance, Helen said. Focused gravitational waves. Shields are designed to stop energy and matter, not gravity. This crushes the ship from the inside out. Christopher let out a low whistle. How many of these can you make? Given unlimited resources? I can retrofit the entire fleet in 3 weeks. But there's one more thing you need to see. Helen pulled up another display. This one scares me. I call it the Nova Mine. It's a device that triggers a localized fusion reaction. Basically, it creates a miniature star for about 5 seconds. Everything within a kilometer is vaporized. Everything within 10 kilometers takes critical damage. Patricia looked at the calculations. How many of these exist? Right now, 5 prototypes, but I can mass produce them. The question is, do you want me to? Because once these exist, once we use them, other species will try to copy them. We're about to make warfare in space much more deadly. Patricia and Christopher looked at each other. Finally, the general spoke. Make them. Make as many as you can. If the Council wants to threaten extinction, we'll show them what real weapons look like. Over the next week, humanity transformed itself. Every shipyard worked around the clock. Civilian vessels received armor and weapons. Mining operations stripped asteroids bare to provide raw materials. Factories that had made consumer goods retooled to produce ammunition and equipment. Captain Daniel Brooks watched as the Defiant received its upgrades. The ship had been a standard destroyer, one of hundreds in the fleet. Now it was becoming something new, something deadly. Lieutenant Sophie Quinn supervised the installation of the quantum disruptor. She was young for chief engineer, only 28, but she had earned her position by keeping her previous ship running through a pirate ambush that should have destroyed it. How's it looking? Daniel asked, joining her by the main assembly. Sophie tapped her data pad. Power consumption is higher than the specs predicted. I'm rerouting energy from the secondary shields. We'll be less protected but pack a bigger punch. Will it work? In theory. Absolutely. In practice? We won't know until we fire it at an actual Council ship. She looked up at him. You realize we're going to be the test case for this whole weapon system, right? If something goes wrong, we're the ones who find out the hard way. Daniel nodded. That's why they picked us. Because we're good enough to handle it if things get complicated. Sophie returned to her work. I've been running simulations. If we fire the quantum disruptor and graviton lance in sequence with precise timing, we can overload a target before it has time to adapt. But the timing has to be perfect. Then we'll practice until it is perfect. How long until the weapons are operational? 72 hours if we don't stop for sleep. Which we won't because we're all insane. She grinned despite the exhaustion on her face. The things we do for humanity. Meanwhile, intelligence operations went into overdrive. Human agents who had been living undercover on neutral worlds for years activated all at once. They gathered information from trading posts, bribed corrupt officials, and hacked into databases. The data they collected painted an interesting picture. The Council had not mobilized. Despite issuing an ultimatum and threatening war, they had not moved any significant forces into position. They were so confident that humanity would surrender that they had not bothered preparing for actual combat. Patricia reviewed the intelligence reports with a mixture of relief and contempt. They're not even taking us seriously. Christopher looked over her shoulder. That's good for us. Means we'll have the element of surprise. They're expecting us to run or beg for mercy. Instead, we're going to hit them hard. What about our people in the disputed colonies? The Council could attack them first. Already handled. We've been evacuating non-essential personnel. Everyone who stays is military or militia, and they know what they signed up for. The colonies have been fortified as much as possible. They won't hold forever, but they'll make the Council work for it. Patricia pulled up the Master War Plan. Operation Thunderstrike. It was ambitious, maybe crazy. Instead of defending and waiting for the Council to attack, humanity would strike first. Fast, hard, and without mercy. Are we really going to do this? She asked quietly. Christopher did not hesitate. Yes, because if we don't, our children will spend their lives under the Council's boot. Because if we don't, every other species in the galaxy will know that humans can be pushed around. Because if we don't, we'll have proven Varric's right about us being primitive and weak. As the deadline approached, ships from across human space converged at rally points. Thousands of vessels, from massive carriers to small fighters, all prepared for the largest military operation in human history. The crew of the Defiant gathered in their briefing room. Daniel stood before them, looking at faces he had known for years. Some were veterans, others were barely out of training. All of them were volunteers. I won't lie to you, he said. The odds are against us. The Council has better shields, more ships, and more experience. By every logical measure, we should lose this war before it begins. He paused, looking each person in the eye. But logic doesn't account for human stubbornness. Logic doesn't account for our refusal to give up. Logic doesn't account for the fact that when you corner a human and threaten everything they care about, they fight back with everything they have. Sophie raised her hand. So what's the plan, Captain? Fleet Admiral Carthax settled into his command throne aboard the Eternal Dominion. The massive battleship led a patrol fleet of 300 Council vessels in the disputed sector. Around him, crew members from a dozen different species performed their duties with the calm efficiency that came from centuries of peace. Carthax was old, even for his long-lived reptilian species. He had commanded fleets for 200 years without facing a serious threat. Pirates sometimes caused trouble, but they ran when council ships appeared. Minor disputes between species were resolved with a show of force. Real war was something from history books. His tactical officer, a floating jellyfish-like being, drifted closer. Admiral sensors are detecting unusual faster-than-light signatures at the edge of the sector. Specifications? Carthax asked without much interest. Probably more human mining ships trying to sneak in before the deadline. Multiple signatures. At least 200 vessels. Configuration matches human military designs. That got Carthax's attention. He leaned forward, studying the display. 200 ships was not a mining fleet. It was a military force. Surely the humans were not stupid enough to actually fight. Broadcast standard warning. Inform them they are in violation of council space and must withdraw immediately. The communication officer transmitted the message. Carthax waited for the expected response, the humans requesting safe passage or asking for more time or begging for mercy. Instead, a human face appeared on the main screen. A male in military uniform, maybe 40 years old, with cold eyes. Behind him, bridge crew worked at combat stations. This is Captain Daniel Brooks of the Terran Defense Forces. I am authorized to transmit humanity's formal response to the Council's ultimatum. Carthax felt something like curiosity. Proceed. The Council demanded we abandon colonies we established legally. You claimed territory that was empty until we arrived. You threatened us with destruction for the crime of exploring space. Your ultimatum has been reviewed by Earth government and rejected completely. Daniel's expression did not change. Furthermore, humanity formally declares that we are in a state of war with the Galactic Council. We will defend our colonies and our right to exist. We will not surrender. We will not retreat, and we will not be intimidated by threats. Carthax could not believe what he was hearing. You cannot be serious. Do you understand what you are saying? The Council commands millions of ships. We have existed for 10,000 years. Your entire species could be destroyed in a matter of weeks. Daniel smiled, but there was no humor in it. Then I guess you better bring those millions of ships, because these 200 are more than enough to deal with your patrol fleet. The screen went black. For a moment, Carthax just stared at where the human's face had been. Then he started laughing. His crew looked at him in confusion. They actually think they can win. These primitive apes think 200 ships can defeat 300 council vessels. He wiped tears from his eyes. Very well. If they want a lesson in reality, we will provide it. All ships engage the human fleet, disable their engines and weapons. I want prisoners to take back to the council as proof of this absurdity. The council fleet moved into standard battle formation, a wall of ships with overlapping shields and coordinated firing patterns. They had used this formation for centuries. It was unbreakable. On the bridge of the Defiant, Daniel watched the council formation take shape. Lieutenant Sophie Quinn stood at her engineering station, hands moving across controls. Weapon status? Daniel asked, quantum disruptor charged and ready. Graviton lance at full power. Nova mines loaded. Sophie looked up. All systems green. We're ready to show them what human engineering can do. All ships execute attack pattern Delta. Maximum acceleration. Hit them before they know what's happening. The human fleet did something no council enemy had ever done. They accelerated directly toward the council formation at velocities that should kill any crew. But human bodies could handle more stress than most aliens, and humans had learned long ago that sometimes the best defense was a terrifying offense. Carthax watched his tactical display in disbelief. What are they doing? They're coming straight at us. Suicide run? His weapons officer suggested. No species is that insane. Open fire, all weapons. Disable them before they reach us. Council ships fired. Precisely aimed shots intended to destroy engines without killing crews. The shots that hit damaged human ships but did not stop them. The shots that missed were calculated misses, part of the standard procedure for dealing with inferior opponents. Then the Defiant fired its quantum disruptor. Sophie watched her instruments as the weapon activated. The projectile phased out of normal space, becoming quantum probability rather than matter. From the Council's perspective, there was nothing to shoot at, nothing for shields to stop. The projectile rematerialized inside a Council battleship, already past their shields. It tore through the hull like paper. The ship exploded in a ball of fire. On the Eternal Dominion, alarm started screaming. Carthax stared at his display. One of his battleships had just died and he had no idea how. Report. What happened? Unknown weapon. The shields did not register any impact. His tactical officer's voice carried panic. Multiple ships are firing similar weapons across the formation. More Council ships exploded. The human fleet had split into small groups, each targeting a different part of the formation. They moved like predators, fast and lethal, while Council ships tried to track targets that were suddenly everywhere at once. Commander Victoria Lane led her squadron of human destroyers against the Council's right flank. She activated her graviton lance and selected her target. Fire! The weapon sent focused gravity waves toward a Council cruiser. The crew inside never knew what hit them. Their ship imploded, crushed by forces their shields were never designed to stop. The hull folded in on itself like a tin can in a vise. Target destroyed. Moving to next target. Victoria's voice was calm, professional. She had trained for this her entire career. Finally, she got to put that training to use. Carthax tried to maintain control. All ships reform defensive pattern. Focus fire on human command vessels. But the Council formation was already falling apart. Humans targeted command ships first, destroying the vessels that coordinated tactics. Without those command ships, the Council fleet became hundreds of individual vessels, all trying to fight their own battles. Daniel watched his tactical display. The plan was working perfectly. Council ships were powerful individually, but they relied on coordination and rigid tactics. Throw them into chaos and they did not know how to adapt. Sophie, how are the weapons holding up? Running hot but stable. I can give you another 20 shots before we need to cool down. Make them count. Target those 3 cruisers forming up on our left. Fire when ready. The Defiant fired again. 1 cruiser exploded. Another took critical damage and started venting atmosphere. The third tried to retreat but ran straight into a firing solution from another human ship. Carthax realized with growing horror that his fleet was dying. In 15 minutes of combat, he had lost over 100 ships. The humans had lost maybe 10. This was not supposed to be possible. All ships retreat. Fall back to rally point 7. The Council ships tried to disengage, but human vessels pursued like sharks smelling blood. They did not allow orderly retreat. They harassed, struck from unexpected angles, forced Council ships to scatter. Daniel saw Council ships trying to escape and made a decision. Deploy Nova mines. Let's give them a reason to run faster. Human ships released small devices that drifted into the middle of the retreating Council formation. For a moment, nothing happened. Then they activated. 5 miniature suns bloomed in space. The fusion reactions lasted only seconds, but seconds were enough. Council ships caught in the blasts simply ceased to exist, vaporized by temperatures hot enough to melt steel in microseconds. Ships outside the kill zone took massive damage from electromagnetic pulses that fried their systems. The Eternal Dominion shook as a wave of energy washed over it. Half the bridge consoles went dark. Carthax pulled himself up from where he had fallen. Status report.
Shields collapsed.
Weapons offline. Engineering reports critical damage across all systems. His tactical officer was barely holding together. Sir, we've lost 237 ships. Only 63 are still combat capable. Carthax looked at the tactical display, at the red icons marking destroyed ships, at the human fleet that had done the impossible. He had been wrong. They all had been wrong. These humans were not primitive. They were not weak. They were something the Council had not faced in 10,000 years. They were dangerous. Get us out of here. Maximum speed. We need to warn the Council. He paused, then added, Tell them the humans are not what we thought. The Eternal Dominion limped toward the edge of the system, its escorts forming a protective screen. Behind them, human ships stopped pursuing. They had won decisively. No need to risk casualties chasing broken enemies. Daniel stood on the bridge of the Defiant, looking at the debris field that had been a Council fleet. Around him, his crew was silent. They had done it. They had actually done it. Ensign Peter Grant, the young navigation officer, spoke quietly. Captain, did we just win? Daniel shook his head. We won a battle. The war is just beginning. But the Grand Assembly Hall had changed. Where there had been calm certainty, now there was tension. High Chancellor Varric stood before the council, and for the first time in his 3 centuries of leadership, he looked uncertain. Around him, the 12 council members watched footage from the Battle of Sector 447. They watched human ships phase projectiles through shields. They watched council vessels crushed by gravity weapons. They watched miniature stars bloom and vaporize entire formations. When the footage ended, silence filled the hall. Finally, a council member broke it. The crystalline being called War Master Zalcourt spoke in patterns of light that translators converted to sound. We have underestimated the humans. This is clear. What is not clear is how a species we dismissed as primitive developed weapons we cannot defend against. Varric clicked his mandibles in irritation. They got lucky. They found some unexpected technology, but they are still outnumbered 1,000 to 1. We have resources they cannot match. Then why have we lost every engagement since Sector 447? The question came from Councillor Mirana, one of the aquatic Velshir species. Her tank rippled with agitation. Human ships have struck at 12 military installations across 4 sectors. Each time our forces were defeated. Each time they used tactics we could not counter. Varric turned on her. Are you suggesting we negotiate with these creatures? After they attacked council forces? After they declared war on 10,000 years of civilized order? Mirana did not back down. I am suggesting we recognize reality. The humans asked for reasonable terms. We refused. They requested compromise. We threatened genocide. Now they are showing us the cost of our arrogance. Several council members made sounds of agreement. Others voiced anger. The unity that had held the council together for millennia was cracking. War Master Zalcourt brought the discussion back to practical matters. Regardless of how we arrived at this situation, we must respond. I propose mobilizing the Grand Armada, 50,000 warships, the full might of council military power. We strike directly at Earth, humanity's homeworld. They will surrender to save their birthplace. Mirana protested immediately. That is genocide. You would destroy their entire civilization. I would force their surrender, Zalcourt corrected. If they choose to fight to the last human, that is their decision. But faced with the destruction of Earth, they will have no choice but to submit. Varric called for a vote. The council divided almost evenly. In the end, the hardliners won by a narrow margin. The Grand Armada would be mobilized. War Master Zalcourt would lead the assault on Earth. As the session ended, Mirana approached Varric privately. This is a mistake. You are pushing them into a corner. Cornered animals fight the hardest. They are not animals, Varric said coldly. They are a young species that needs to learn their place. Once we destroy their fleet and threaten their homeworld, they will remember why the Council has maintained peace for so long. Through strength. Mirana watched him leave, then activated a secure communication device. It was technically treason to contact the enemy during wartime, but she believed saving lives was more important than following unjust laws. The signal reached Ambassador Gregory Martinez on Earth. He listened to her warning about the Grand Armada with a calm expression that hid his fear. 50,000 ships. The entire Council military focused on one target. Thank you for the warning, Counselor. May I ask why you are telling me this? Mirana's translator carried sadness. Because this war should never have happened. Because your initial request was reasonable. Because I have served the Council for 5,000 years and I no longer recognize what we have become. If you help us, you will be considered a traitor. Then I will be a traitor. Some things are more important than loyalty to institutions that have lost their way. She paused. Can you win this, honestly? Gregory considered his answer carefully. I do not know, but we will fight. Because humans do not surrender when threatened. We get angry, we get creative, and we find ways to win that no one expects. After ending the communication, Gregory went to the military command center. General Patricia Cole and Admiral Christopher Morgan were already there, studying tactical displays. We have a problem, Gregory announced. The Council is sending everything they have. 50,000 ships heading straight for Earth. Patricia pulled up fleet dispositions. We can field maybe 1,000 ships in Earth's defense. That's a 50 to 1 disadvantage. Even with our new weapons, those odds are impossible. Christopher studied the projections. What if we do not try to match them ship for ship? What if we change the nature of the battle entirely? Explain. They are bringing their entire fleet to one location. That's tactically stupid, but they're doing it to intimidate us. Fine, let them come. But we choose the battlefield. We prepare it. And we use weapons they cannot counter because they have never seen them before. Patricia leaned forward. You are talking about Project Daybreak. Christopher nodded. Dr. Helen Ross said she could deploy it across the asteroid belt. The Council brings their fleet into the Sol system. We activate Daybreak, and suddenly they are trapped here with us. No shields, no faster-than-light drives, just ship-to-ship combat where our advantages matter. Gregory saw the plan's beauty and its risk. It would trap our ships, too. Our ships have conventional backup systems. Theirs do not. They have relied on exotic technology for so long, they have forgotten how to fight without it. Christopher pulled up detailed plans. We let them come to us. We let them think they have won. Then we change the rules of the game. Patricia approved the plan with one condition. We need to evacuate civilians from Earth's orbital stations. If this goes wrong, the fighting will be right on our doorstep. Already underway. We have 3 weeks before the Armada arrives. That is enough time to get everyone to safety and prepare our surprises. Across human space, preparations intensified. Dr. Helen Ross worked with teams on Mars to finalize Project Daybreak. Captain Daniel Brooks brought the Defiant and his battle group back to Earth for final upgrades. Every available ship joined the defense fleet. Meanwhile, human intelligence operations achieved a breakthrough. Encrypted communications revealed that several Council species were reconsidering their support for the war. They had seen what happened to the fleet in Sector 447. They questioned whether humanity was the real threat, or whether the Council's aggressive policies had created an enemy that did not need to exist. Patricia received reports from agents across the galaxy. 3 Council species have quietly reduced their military contributions. 2 more are in active negotiations with our diplomats. The Council is not as united as they appear. Christopher saw the opportunity. Can we exploit that division? Already working on it. I have authorized our diplomats to offer generous trade agreements and mutual defense pacts to any species that stays neutral. Some are interested. On the Council's capital world, Varix discovered Mirana's communication with the humans. He had her arrested and confined to her quarters. Before the guards could seal her communications, she managed to send one final message to humanity. Do not give up. Half the Council knows this war is wrong. Win your next battle and the political situation will shift. Lose, and we all lose everything. I am sorry I could not do more. Gregory read her message and felt unexpected emotion. An alien he had never met was risking everything to help humanity. It reminded him that not all Council members were like Varix. Some still believed in justice and fairness. The Grand Armada assembled at a staging point 3 light years from Earth. War Master. Zalcourt stood in the command center of his flagship, looking at the display showing 50,000 ships. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. His second in command, a 4-armed insectoid warrior, approached. All ships report ready for jump. We can reach the human homeworld in 6 hours. Zalcourt's light patterns conveyed satisfaction. Transmit the following message to Earth. Tell them they have one chance to surrender. If they hand over all military vessels and submit to Council authority, we will spare their planet. If they refuse, we will destroy their fleet and bombard their world until they have no choice. The message reached Earth. Patricia, Christopher, and Gregory read it together in the command center. Well? Patricia asked. How should we respond? Gregory smiled coldly. Tell them we will meet them in battle. Tell them humanity rejects their ultimatum, just like we rejected the first one. Tell them if they want Earth, they will have to take it from us. Christopher added. And tell them that they are about to learn an important lesson. Never corner a species that has nothing left to lose. The response transmitted. On his flagship, Zalcourt read humanity's rejection with something like respect. They were either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. He would know which in a few hours. All ships jump to Earth. It is time to end this war. The Grand Armada vanished into faster-than-light travel. Behind them, Varix watched from the Council capital. He believed completely that humanity would surrender when faced with such overwhelming force. Every species did. It was the natural response to impossible odds. He had forgotten that humans were not like every species. Humans did not respond to threats the way other species did. Humans did not follow the expected patterns. The Grand Armada emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. 50,000 ships arranged in layers, each supporting the others, creating a wall of firepower that stretched across millions of kilometers. From his flagship, War Master Zalcourt looked at the tactical display and felt satisfaction. The human fleet waited in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Only 1,000 ships against his 50,000. The outcome was obvious. Open communications channel, Zalcourt ordered. Let me speak to whoever commands the human forces. Admiral Christopher Morgan's face appeared on the screen. He stood on the bridge of his flagship Indomitable, looking calm despite facing impossible odds. I am War Master Zalcourt of the Galactic Council. You see the forces arrayed against you. You have one final chance to surrender. Disable your weapons and prepare for boarding. Your people will be treated fairly if you submit now. Christopher looked at the display showing the massive enemy fleet. Then he looked back at Zalcourt and smiled. Your ultimatum is rejected. If you want Earth, come and take it. The screen went black. Zalcourt felt something like disappointment. These humans were brave, he would give them that. Foolish but brave. All ships advance. Destroy the human fleet. The Grand Armada moved forward like a tide. But instead of waiting to be crushed, the human ships did something unexpected. They charged. Captain Daniel Brooks led the Defiant directly toward the center of the Council formation. Around him, human ships accelerated to velocities that should kill their crews. But humans could handle the stress, and they had learned that speed and aggression often beat careful tactics. Sophie, activate all weapons. Time to show them what we can do. Lieutenant Sophie Quinn's hands moved across her controls. Quantum disruptor charged. Graviton lance ready. Nova mines loaded. Let us make this count. The Council fleet opened fire. Thousands of weapons targeting the approaching human ships. But humans were small and fast, dodging and weaving through the incoming fire. Some human ships were hit and destroyed, but most made it through the initial barrage. Then the humans fired back. Quantum disruptors phased through shields. Graviton lances crushed ships from inside. Council vessels that had never been damaged in centuries of service suddenly exploded or imploded. Zalcourt watched his formation take casualties and felt confusion. They were destroying human ships, but the humans were destroying his ships faster. How are they penetrating our shields? Tactical, I need answers. Unknown, War Master. Their weapons operate on principles we do not understand. Attempting to adapt defenses, but it will take time. Time was something Zalcourt did not have. Human ships were cutting through his formations like knives. They targeted command vessels first, destroying the ships that coordinated tactics. They used the asteroids as cover, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. Daniel led a squadron directly into the heart of the Council fleet. All ships, release Nova mines on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. Dozens of small devices drifted into the densest concentration of Council ships. For a moment, nothing happened. Then artificial stars bloomed in space, each one vaporizing everything within a kilometer and crippling ships for 10 kilometers beyond. The Council fleet took massive casualties. Thousands of ships destroyed in seconds. Their careful formation shattered as vessels tried to escape the blast zones. But the Council still had overwhelming numbers. They began to adapt, spreading their ships apart to minimize damage from the Nova mines, focusing fire on individual human vessels. The battle became a brutal test of endurance. On the Indomitable, Christopher watched his tactical display. The human fleet was fighting brilliantly, but they were taking losses. At this rate, they would be overwhelmed within hours. He opened a channel to Patricia on Earth. Tell Helen to activate Daybreak, now. On Mars, Dr. Helen Ross had been waiting for this moment with dread. She pressed the activation switch. Arrays hidden throughout the asteroid belt powered up, generating a massive gravimetric pulse that spread outward at the speed of light. The pulse hit both fleets simultaneously. On Council ships, alarms screamed. Their faster-than-light drives shut down completely. Their shields, which relied on exotic matter manipulation, flickered and died. Their most powerful weapons went offline. Zalcourt stared at his displays in shock. What happened? Why are our systems failing? Massive gravimetric interference across the entire system.
It is disrupting all advanced technology.
We cannot jump to faster than light, and shields are non-functional. On human ships, crews switched to backup systems. They had prepared for this. Their conventional drives worked fine. Their kinetic weapons did not rely on exotic technology. Suddenly, the technological advantage the Council had enjoyed for millennia was gone. Daniel grinned at Sophie. This is it. Now we fight on our terms.
All weapons, continuous fire.
The battle transformed. Council ships designed to fight with shields and advanced weapons were suddenly vulnerable. Human ships built with redundant systems and conventional backups maintained full combat capability. The Defiant tore through Council formations. Without shields to protect them, enemy ships died to simple kinetic weapons. Sophie fired the Graviton Lance again and again, each shot crushing another vessel. Across the battlefield, human crews pressed their advantage. They had trained for years to fight in these exact conditions. The Council had never imagined needing to fight without their technological superiority. Zalcourt tried to rally his fleet. All ships reformed defensive positions, use conventional weapons. We still outnumber them, but his ships did not know how to fight this way. They had relied on technology for so long that they had forgotten the basics of naval warfare. Human ships with crews trained in every type of combat scenario moved with practiced efficiency. On the Indomitable, Christopher issued orders to exploit the chaos. All squadrons target their command vessels. Cut off their coordination. Make them fight as individuals instead of a fleet. Commander Victoria Lane led her squadron in a devastating strike against a Council carrier group. Without shields, the massive carriers were vulnerable. Her ships fired quantum disruptors and watched the huge vessels break apart. Carrier group destroyed. Moving to next target. Victoria's voice carried satisfaction. They were winning. Against all odds, humanity was actually winning. The battle raged for hours. Council ships tried to retreat, but with faster-than-light drives offline, they had nowhere to run. Those that surrendered were allowed to do so. Those that kept fighting were destroyed. On his flagship, Zalcourt watched his Grand Armada die. Of 50,000 ships, less than 10,000 remained combat-capable. His invincible force had been broken by a species he had dismissed as primitive. A transmission came through from the Indomitable. Christopher's face appeared, showing exhaustion and determination. War Master Zalcourt, you came here to force our surrender. Instead, your fleet is destroyed. I am offering you the chance to surrender with honor. Your surviving ships will be allowed to leave this system. Your crews will be treated as prisoners of war with full rights and protections. Or you can continue fighting and we will destroy every last ship you have. Zalcourt looked at his tactical display. 10,000 ships against 1,000 human vessels. By numbers, he could still win, but his ships were demoralized, their technology disabled, their formations broken, and the humans were not even breathing hard. What are your terms for peace? Zalcourt asked quietly. Christopher pulled up a document. Full recognition of human territorial claims. Withdrawal of all Council forces from disputed sectors. Formal admission that the Council's ultimatum was unjust. And most importantly, humanity gains full voting rights in Council governance. We are equals, not subjects. Zalcourt knew he had no choice. To continue fighting would mean the complete destruction of his fleet and tens of thousands of deaths. The Council could build more ships, but they could not replace experienced crews. I accept your terms. The Council will honor them. You have my word as War Master. Then I am ordering my ships to cease fire. Your vessels may begin withdrawing once the gravimetric interference clears in 72 hours. Your faster-than-light drives will function again. Take your people home, War Master. This war is over. The transmission ended. Across the Sol system, human ships stopped firing. They maintained defensive positions, but allowed Council vessels to retreat. Rescue operations began immediately for ships on both sides that had taken damage. On Earth, crowds gathered to watch the news broadcasts. They had won. Humanity had faced the greatest military force in galactic history and emerged victorious. People cried, laughed, hugged strangers. The weight of fear that had hung over them for weeks finally lifted. 3 weeks later, a ceremony took place in neutral space. The Grand Assembly Hall hosted the peace treaty signing. Ambassador Gregory Martinez stood before the Council once more, but this time the atmosphere was very different. High Chancellor Varix looked older somehow, diminished by the defeat his forces had suffered. He spoke formally, his translator carrying no emotion. The Galactic Council acknowledges that our ultimatum to humanity was issued without proper consideration. We recognize human territorial claims in the disputed sectors. We grant humanity full membership in this council, with equal voting rights to all other species, and we formally apologize for threatening the human species with destruction. The words were bitter for him,